Sarah applied for 15 jobs. Not a single response. Her resume was perfect. Her experience solid. Her qualifications strong. But she never made it past the first gate. An algorithm rejected her before any human ever saw her name. Meanwhile, Michael's credit score dropped 40 points. Not because he missed a payment, but because an algorithm noticed he shopped at discount stores. And Jennifer? She went from watching fitness videos to conspiracy theories about vaccines. In just 3 weeks. She didn't choose that path. The algorithm did. Your future is being written right now. By machines you'll never meet. Using rules you'll never see. Every day, invisible systems are making decisions about your life. What you see when you open your phone. Whether you get that loan. If your resume makes it to a human. These aren't random. They're not neutral. They're algorithms. And they're quietly sorting humanity into winners and losers. Today, we're going inside 3 systems that control your future. First, the recommendation engines that decide what captures your attention. Second, the scoring machines that determine your financial opportunities. And third, the filters that judge whether you're worth a chance. By the end of this, you'll understand how these systems watch you, what they're optimizing for, and why they sometimes push us toward outcomes nobody actually wanted. This isn't about technology being evil. It's about understanding the invisible hand that's shaping your reality, so you can push back. Let's start simple. What is an algorithm? Strip away the mysticism. And it's just a set of instructions. If this happens, do that. If a user clicks here, show them this. But here's where it gets interesting. Modern algorithms don't just follow simple rules. They learn. They adapt. They watch what works. And do more of it. Go back to 2006. If you opened YouTube or Facebook, you saw posts in order. Newest first. Simple. Chronological. Fair, right? But there was a problem. From the company's perspective, users weren't sticking around. They'd scroll for 2 minutes and leave. And if users leave, advertisers don't pay. So around 2012, everything changed. YouTube announced a massive shift. They rebuilt their entire recommendation system around one metric. Watch time. Not just clicks anymore. How long you actually stayed. And suddenly, the algorithm had a mission. Keep people watching. By any means necessary. Other platforms followed. Instagram ditched chronological feeds. TikTok launched with personalization baked into its DNA. The For You page wasn't just a feature. It was the entire app. And it worked. TikTok's algorithm became famous for being almost creepy in its accuracy. It would show you videos you didn't even know you wanted, based on micro-behaviors you didn't realize you were exhibiting. How long you paused on a video. Whether you watched it twice. Whether you scrolled past immediately. Thousands of tiny signals, fed into a system that learned your preferences better than you knew them yourself. But here's the thing. These systems aren't trying to show you the truth. They're not optimizing for your growth as a person. They're optimizing for engagement. For clicks. For watch time. For session length. Because that's what keeps the lights on. That's what makes the stock price go up. And the results? Well, we're living in them. Now, you might think recommendation algorithms are just about entertainment. Harmless rabbit holes into cat videos and cooking tutorials. But the same logic, the same optimization, has spread everywhere, into systems that decide much bigger things. Let's talk about what these systems actually see when they watch you. You open TikTok. Within milliseconds, decisions are being made. The algorithm knows what time it is. It knows what you watched yesterday. It knows how long you've been on the app today. It knows whether you're on Wi-Fi or data. What device you're using. Your location. At least approximately. And most importantly, It knows what happened the last 100 times it showed you something. Every video is a test. If you watch for 3 seconds and scroll, that's data. If you watch to the end, that's stronger data. If you rewatch it, even better. If you share it, comment on it, save it, the algorithm just learned something powerful about you. And here's where it gets fascinating. The system doesn't need to understand why you liked it. It just needs to find patterns. You watched 3 videos about gardening and 2 about minimalism. So maybe you'll like this video about sustainable living. The algorithm doesn't know what sustainable living means, but it knows these things cluster together in user behavior. YouTube works similarly, but with a twist. Because videos are longer, watch time becomes everything. A video that keeps you watching for 12 minutes is worth more than a video you click on but abandon after 30 seconds. This created a weird incentive. Creators learned to make videos longer, to add fluff, to bury the answer you came for halfway through. Because if they give it to you in the first minute, you'll leave. And if you leave, the algorithm punishes them. Now here's the controversial part. When you optimize for engagement above all else, what gets promoted? Not always the most accurate information. Not the most balanced perspective. What gets promoted is what keeps people watching. And you know what keeps people watching? Outrage, shock, conspiracy, extreme opinions. Not always, but often enough to tilt the landscape. Studies have found that divisive content spreads faster than neutral content. That angry reactions drive more engagement than thoughtful ones. The algorithm doesn't prefer extreme content because it's evil. It prefers extreme content because extreme content works. Let's move to the second arena. Your money. For decades, credit scores have quietly decided who gets loans, who pays higher interest rates, who can rent an apartment. The FICO score, introduced back in the 80s, was already algorithmic. Already a black box to most people. But at least it was based on clear factors. Payment history. Credit utilization. Length of credit history. Straightforward, right? But now, scoring has evolved. Fintech companies and insurers started asking, what if we could predict risk using more data? What if we looked at where you shop? What device you use? What time of day you apply for a loan? One company reportedly adjusted credit offers based on whether you typed your name in all caps. Because statistically, people who type in all caps are slightly more likely to default. Is that fair? Maybe not. But it's predictive. And prediction is the game. Some lenders now use alternative data. Your rent payment history. Your utility bills. Even your social media activity, if you consent. On the surface, this seems good, right? People without traditional credit histories can finally get scored. But there's a darker side. These systems can encode bias. If you live in a zip code that's historically been redlined, if you went to a school that's underfunded, if your name statistically correlates with a certain demographic, the algorithm might score you lower. Not because of explicit racism, but because it learned patterns from biased historical data. And then there's ad targeting. Every time you browse the web, algorithms are building a profile of you. You looked at running shoes. So now you're in the fitness enthusiast segment. You read an article about anxiety. Now you're potentially in the mental health segment. You watched videos about a certain political candidate. Now you're in a political affinity group. These segments are sold to advertisers. But here's the eerie part. The algorithm can infer things you never told it. It can guess your relationship status from your browsing patterns, your income level from the sites you visit, even your emotional state from how you type. Privacy advocates have long argued that some companies build shadow profiles, combining data from multiple sources to create a picture of you that's more complete than what you explicitly shared. The companies deny the most extreme versions of this. But the truth is, we don't fully know. Because these systems are proprietary. Trade secrets. Black boxes. Now let's talk about where this goes wrong. Let's talk about the consequences nobody planned for. Start with hiring. More and more companies use algorithms to screen resumes. You apply online. Your resume goes into a system. And that system scans for keywords. If you don't have the exact phrases it's looking for, you're rejected automatically. No human ever sees your application. This sounds efficient. And sometimes it is. But it also means qualified people get filtered out for arbitrary reasons. You took a year off to care for a sick parent? Gap in employment. Rejected. You went to a state school instead of an Ivy League? Algorithm learned that Ivy grads perform slightly better on average. So it downranks you. You used a slightly different job title than the one the algorithm expects. Rejected. It's efficient for the company. But it's brutal for the applicant who never gets a shot to explain context. Then there's predictive policing. Some police departments use algorithms to predict where crime is likely to happen. The system analyzes historical crime data and tells officers where to patrol. The problem? Historical crime data is biased. If police have historically overpatrolled certain neighborhoods, those neighborhoods show higher crime rates. So the algorithm sends more police there, which leads to more arrests, which feeds back into the data, which reinforces the pattern. It's a feedback loop. And people who live in those neighborhoods end up over-policed. Not because crime is actually higher, but because the algorithm learned from biased history. Let's go back to recommendations for a second, because there's something we haven't fully addressed. Filter bubbles. When an algorithm learns what you like, it shows you more of that. Sounds good, right? If you love jazz, you get jazz recommendations. But here's the insidious part. If you watch one video that's slightly political, the algorithm might nudge you toward more political content. And if you engage with that, it nudges you further. Before you know it, your entire feed is one perspective, one ideology, one worldview, and you don't even notice it happening. Because each individual recommendation feels reasonable. It's only when you zoom out that you see the walls closing in. There are documented cases of people being radicalized through YouTube recommendations. They start with mainstream content. Get recommended something slightly more extreme. Engage with it. Get recommended something even more extreme. Within months, they're in communities they never would have found on their own. The algorithm didn't set out to radicalize anyone, but it set out to maximize watch time. And extreme content keeps people watching. Here's a rumored angle that's hard to verify but worth mentioning. Some privacy researchers argue that tech companies are building even more detailed profiles than they publicly admit, using data from sources you wouldn't expect. Data brokers, cross-device tracking, offline purchase data. The companies push back on the most extreme versions of these claims. But the truth is murky. We know data brokerage is a massive industry. We know cross-device fingerprinting exists. We just don't know exactly how much is being connected behind the scenes. What we do know is this. The algorithms are powerful. They're opaque. And they're optimizing for metrics that don't always align with human well-being. They're not evil. But they're not neutral either. They're tools built by humans, trained on biased data, deployed in systems where profit is the primary motive. And when you optimize for profit above all else, weird things happen. So what are the platforms doing about this? Well, they say they're trying. YouTube claims it downranks borderline content and promotes authoritative sources for news. TikTok says it diversifies your For You page to prevent filter bubbles. Meta, says it's investing in AI to detect harmful content before it spreads. And maybe they are. Maybe these efforts are genuine. But the fundamental tension remains. These companies make money from engagement. And the content that drives the most engagement isn't always the healthiest. So what can you actually do? First, be aware. Just knowing this exists changes how you interact with it. When you see a recommendation, ask yourself why. Why is this being shown to me right now? What did I do that made the algorithm think I want this? Second, diversify your inputs. Don't let the algorithm be your only source of information. Seek out perspectives that challenge you. Follow people you disagree with. Read long-form journalism. Break the bubble deliberately. Third, control what you can. Most platforms have settings. You can tell YouTube to stop recommending certain topics. You can clear your watch history. You can tell Instagram to show posts chronologically. These aren't perfect solutions, but they're something. On the financial side, check your credit report regularly. You're entitled to free reports from the major bureaus. Look for errors. Dispute anything that's wrong. And if you're applying for a loan or a job, understand that a machine might screen you first. Tailor your resume to include keywords from the job description. It's annoying. It's game playing. But it increases your chances of getting past the filter. Most importantly, remember that you have agency. These algorithms are powerful, but they're not omnipotent. They can nudge you. They can't control you. Every time you choose to click away from something that's trying to bait you, every time you seek out nuance instead of outrage, every time you question why something landed in your feed, you're pushing back. And if enough of us push back, the algorithms will learn different patterns. Because remember, they're optimizing for what works. And if outrage stops working, they'll try something else. Your future isn't fully written yet. Yes, algorithms are making thousands of micro decisions about your life. But you're still the author of the big decisions. The algorithm can recommend, but you choose whether to click. It can score you, but you decide how to respond. It can filter you, but you can find other doors. We're living in a strange moment where our lives are negotiated between human judgment and machine logic. Understanding that negotiation, that's the first step to taking back control. If this opened your eyes to something you hadn't thought about before, you might want to check out the next video where we dive into a startup that faked everything, and how algorithms help them do it. The systems we just talked about, they're not just watching regular people. They're also creating opportunities for deception at scale. And that story is wild. Before you go, if you found this valuable, hit that subscribe button. I spend weeks researching these deep dives into how technology is reshaping society. And your subscription genuinely helps me keep making them. Plus, you'll be first to know when the next one drops. And if you want to support even more, leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you've had experiences with these algorithmic systems. The algorithm might be watching, but so am I. And your voice matters here.